We open this episode seeing Tywin Lannister meet with the Triarchy in Essos. He tries to convince them to ally with Team Green to defeat Corlys' blockade. They ask for the Stepstones in return and said they'll tax everyone who passes by. Tywin reluctantly agrees to their terms. They inform him the captain of their ships will not sail with anyone and that he'll need to meet them and prove themselves. The captain, Shakara Lahar, walks in and tells Tywin she cannot sail with someone who hasn't bested her. Tywin simply asks, "And what?" The captain turns around and smiles. Next, we see Aemon sitting on Vhagar, staring at a castle he no doubt just burned. We hear people scream as he flies from the castle. We cut to seeing Aegon waking up in bed. He asks the maester, "What did I miss?" As he's handed, I assume, the milk of the poppy to relieve his pain. He tells him, "You're a good man, Orwell." Larys enters the room and tells Aegon they must leave King's Landing and that his sister has 3 new dragon riders. Aegon says, "I am the king, why must I run?" Larys quickly responds, "Because the Prince Regent wants to kill you." Larys also asks, "What will you do when Rhaenyra and her dragons decide to come for you?" Larys then suggests they escape to Essos while his siblings destroy one another. We now see Rhaena still running around in the Vale looking for the dragon sheep stealer. She falls to her knees and drinks water from a small pond. I really hope this girl claims this dragon. Also, where are Rhaenyra's children? She's supposed to be watching them, correct? Jazeera walks into the small council room and commands our dragon seed Ulf to remove his feet from the table. Ulf does so and says, "Wow, the rumors are true. The hair is dark, but it doesn't matter because there's no difference between you and me." Ulf is hilarious and has no couth. Hugh Ham apologizes for Ulf's lack of manners. Rhaenyra and Corlys discuss battle plans at the docks. As they discuss strategy, Corlys tells Rhaenyra, now that she has more dragons, she should strike while she has the advantage. He also tells her not to forget about the dragon Dreamfire and her brother Daeron's dragon. Rhaenyra tells him Helaena doesn't fly and that Daeron's dragon is younger and not that big. Corlys responds, "But a dragon nonetheless." Daemon is at Harrenhal preparing for war with his army, so Alfred enters the castle to meet with Daemon. He and Daemon talks privately near the weirwood tree. Sir Alfred tells Daemon he hasn't been secure in some of Rhaenyra's decisions. We hear a whisper say, "Traitor." Startled by this, Sir Alfred turns around and asks Daemon, "Did you hear something?" Daemon smiles and responds, "I never took you for a turncoat." "Rhaenyra's intentions are good, but what we need now is a king," says Sir Alfred. Daemon walks away. Sir Alfred really has some nerve trying to betray Rhaenyra. Team Black needs to get rid of him. I predict he's going to cause some trouble in the future. Next, we see Aemon walking through the halls of King's Landing. Lord Jasper Wild informs him about the small folk starving because of the blockade. Aemon responds they'll starve or be slayed by our enemies. I can't believe he's still not taking this matter seriously, especially after what happened to Alicent and Helaena in the last episode. Aemon is a terrible king. Now we see Helaena and Alicent conversing. Helaena asks Alicent, "Why did they hate us so much?" Alicent explains they're starving and expect us to end the blockade. Helaena tells Alicent, "I was happier when I wasn't queen." Alicent looks at Helaena with a look of intrigue on her face and asks, "Have you ever thought about leaving this place?" Helaena asks, "Where would I go?" Suddenly, Aemon walks in and demands that Helaena rides her dragon, Dreamfire, into battle. Helaena refuses and tells him she will not burn people with her dragon. Aemon grabs her and Alicent stops him and tells him that Helaena deserves to be protected out of anyone. She then tells him that he wishes to rule, but he brings only death and destruction, like how he burned the castle at SharePoint. He tells his mother that her weakness as a queen is the reason why the small folk ambushed them. Aemon was totally unhinged for this. Helaena is not built for war, and I feel the request was unrealistic, but I guess he's desperate at this point. Alicent locates the Grand Maester and asks him if he can do her a favor and provide safe passage. We cut to Sir Gawain and Sir Criston Cole conversing in the woods. Sir Criston looks like he's still dealing with his PTSD, confesses his sins with Alicent. He expresses that she saved his life and has deep feelings for her. Sir Gawain, outraged by Sir Criston's confessions, points his sword towards him and challenges him to a duel. So Kristen looks up at him and says, "We march to our annihilation. To die now would be a kind of relief, don't you think?" We see Tywin Lannister is mud wrestling with Shakara Lohar, and he's getting his ass handed to him. He finally stops holding back and begins to win this wrestling match. She begins to respect him and invites him to dinner. The Triarchy requires a lot for some ships. It was interesting seeing a Lannister get down and dirty in the mud. Jacaerys is in deep thought and is still visibly upset with his mother's decision. Baelor enters the room and says, "It's unbefitting for a prince to pout." He responds, "I'm reading," in a sullen tone. She tells him he's the heir and he should stop beating himself up for being a bastard, and that he's not the first heir to not be born of his father's blood. She begins to encourage him to take his place by his mother's side. Baelor appears to be doing the work and talking sense into these men around her. Next, we see Rhaena at night in the Vale, sleeping under a large stone as she continues to look for Sheepstealer. She's gone through all this to try and claim a wild dragon she's not sure she'll be able to tame. I really hope she bonds with Sheepstealer because she's definitely earned it. I must ask again, where are Rhaenyra's children? Also, is no one looking for Rhaena? We cut to Sir Tywin Lannister singing at dinner. The Captain Shakara Lohar tells Tywin she'll be pleased to sail with him by her side. She tells him he's a handsome man and asks him to screw and impregnate all her wives. He looks at her in disbelief and then asks her, "How many wives do you have?" Why do I have a feeling that Tywin is living his best life during this little visit in Essos? We now see Rhaenyra, Jacaerys, and Baelor having dinner with the Dragon Seeds. She tells them she's trusted them with a power few people in the world have known. She informs them she'll make them knights if they serve her well. She further explains they must strike now while they have the advantage. A servant walks in and tells her a message about treachery having arrived from Harrenhal. I believe Daemon sent this message to warn her about Sir Alfred. She tells the servant she must not allow it and tells Adam to come with her. Suddenly we see Daemon wake up with Alice Rivers sitting on his bed. She tells him how different he is compared to when he first arrived at Harrenhal. She leads him to the weirwood tree in the back of the haunted castle. He sees a mysterious figure with horns walk behind the tree. He touches the tree and Daemon envisions the White Walkers, the Blood Raven, Daenerys, dead dragons, himself sinking in water, and Rhaenyra on the throne. This vision ends with Helaena telling him, "It's all a story, and you are but one part in it. You know your path." Daemon exits the vision with a look of awe on his face. It's clear this was information overload, but I think he has clarity now and will stop his shenanigans and fully support Rhaenyra. I really liked this scene and loved seeing future events and Daenerys' silhouette. I got so excited to see our beloved Daenerys again. Next, we see Helaena staring off at the distance from her balcony. Aemon walks towards her and tries again to convince her to ride Dreamfire to Harrenhal. Little does he know, Helaena has already been to Harrenhal. She refuses and tells him she knows he burned Aegon and let him fall. He denies her claims. She continues speaking and informs him he'll die in the god's eye, never to be seen again. He quickly responds, "I could have you killed." She looks at him, so unfazed by his threat, and says, "It wouldn't change anything," and walks away. Have you all noticed she's communicating her visions clearly now? I feel like Helaena is truly coming into her own in this season finale. We cut to seeing Rhaenyra arrive at Harrenhal. Sir Simon greets her and tells her he wasn't expecting her so soon. She enters a room full of rivermen preparing for war. Suddenly they begin to part like the Red Sea as Daemon walks towards Rhaenyra to greet her. He tells her, "They've sworn loyalty to me." Rhaenyra backs up and loudly asks the rivermen, "And with whom have you sworn loyalty?" Daemon walks towards Rhaenyra and explains his vision to her in High Valyrian. Rhaenyra tells him he sounds like her father. Daemon bends the knee to Rhaenyra and swears his loyalty to her. The army of rivermen follow suit and bend the knee. This scene was very touching and has clearly made Rhaenyra feel more secure with Daemon in this moment. She tells him in High Valyrian, "If you leave me again, it should be at your own peril." I'm so happy Daemon and Rhaenyra are reunited and appear to be on the same page again. Also, I'm so happy this Daemon Harrenhal storyline is officially over. I love where we landed, but I wish we would have gotten here sooner. I'll cover this in my full season review video. Corlys and Alan meet at the docks of Driftmark. Corlys gives Alan instructions to prepare for the upcoming battle with the Triarchy fleet. He also informs Alan the men find him silent and distant. He goes on to tell him, "You cannot lead if you can't inspire." Alan, seemingly annoyed by Corliss's way of trying to provide guidance, begins to scold Corliss about his neglectful behavior towards him and Adam. Corliss takes it without saying a word. Corliss knows he's been wrong for all these years. Alan expresses he only elevated him because his two legitimate offspring are no longer on this earth. He tells Corliss, "If I survive the war, I shall continue as I began." Alone. Alan angrily walks away. Next we see Rhaena finally locate the dragon sheep stealer and run towards him. Her eyes widen due to the shock of finally seeing him. The dragon notices her and roars. "I am so rooting for Rhaena. I hope she's successful with claiming this dragon. Hopefully she can fly back to Rhaenyra's children because I'm a bit concerned." Suddenly we see Rhaenyra and Mysaria on a balcony at Dragonstone, staring out into the distant sea. Mysaria explains to Rhaenyra she's done the impossible and the gods are in her favor. Rhaenyra looks at Mysaria and asks, "But who pays the price?" They have a moment of silence and look at the dragons flying above the shores of Dragonstone. This seems to be foreshadowing the death of the dragons. If you watch the original Game of Thrones series, you understand that dragons will be essentially extinct after this major event in history we're currently watching comes to an end. We cut to Rhaenyra laying in her bed. There's a knock on the door and a servant tells her a messenger has arrived. She walks outside her bedroom and to her surprise, Alicent is waiting for her. She asks, "Why are you here?" Alicent confesses she believes she's made a mistake in believing the path that was set out for them. Alicent nervously bites her nails and tells Rhaenyra, "I do not wish to lead, but I wish to live," and that she's taking Helaena and leaving King's Landing. "You're still trying to escape the consequences of your actions," Rhaenyra responds. Rhaenyra, unfazed by Alicent's sudden awakening, simply tells Alicent it's too late. Things have been set in motion. Alicent continues and explains Aemon's plans to march on Harrenhal. She tells Rhaenyra she can take King's Landing and they'll surrender without a fight. Rhaenyra looks at her with a distrustful look on her face. Alicent pleads with her by telling her Aemon is unhinged and Aegon is broken. "Yet you still defend him," Rhaenyra exclaims. She then tells Alicent she must choose and make a sacrifice. She looks at her and says, "A son for a son." Alicent briefly contemplates this choice by seemingly and silently giving Rhaenyra the green light to do what she must do. Alicent begins to walk away and Rhaenyra asks, "What shall I do with you now?" Alicent responds, "Let me go and you shall take King's Landing in 3 days' time." I love seeing Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy together again. I feel like they have so much chemistry when their characters are interacting on screen. Alicent appears to be done with all this, but I feel Rhaenyra should move with caution with the information Alicent has provided her. Next, we see a montage of the Dragon Seed suiting up for battle. The Hightower, Stark, and Lannister armies march to their respective destinations. We also see the Triarchy and Velaryon fleet sail to battle. We see Rhaena facing off with Sheepstealer and Otto sitting in a cell. Who locked up Otto? As the montage continues, we see Larys and Aegon traveling to Essos. Rhaenyra staring out of a window in deep thought, and finally Alicent standing on a cliff looking at the sunrise. The episode fades to black. Alright, this episode was another solid episode, but I'm so conflicted by the ending. I really was expecting to see the Battle of the Gullet before the season came to an end. However, it looks like they're saving that for the beginning of season 3. This episode finally closed out the Harrenhal storyline and shows the overall strengthening of Team Black. Although it has a lot of good dialogue between multiple characters, I do feel like it was lacking in action. I'm sure many of the fans and the general audience may feel like this finale was lackluster. Despite my disappointment in this episode, it sets up a lot to be desired in season 3, and I can't wait to see how the story further progresses. Overall, I rate this finale a B-. If you like this review, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.